trust my needs. And I can only speak from a male perspective. So when I say this, that doesn't mean women can't, right? I can just tell you how I function as a man. I think men do a great job of navigating life on just their needs. There's other things we may want, but I think we're built in a certain way where we will make sacrifices, but then we do have needs. And so when I express what those needs are, I need you to trust that they're not desires. I need you to trust that they're not just things that I just want to do. I need you to trust that they're needs because I'm functioning on needs right now. I'm navigating space on needs. So I might need 4 hours to go study. I've done a lot of sacrificing and I've reduced my day as small as I can for my study. I've reduced it down to 3 hours. I've given you everything that I have, but I need these 4 hours.
Hi, I'm Erika.
And I'm Sean.
And we are the Blanchards. This podcast is created to be a safe place where we discuss topics regarding faith, love, family, marriage,
and everything in between through the perspective of an interracial blended couple focused on ministry
and mental health. No topic is off limits. We're about to have adult conversation through the eyes of a Latina scholar, life coach, mother, and wife.
Along with the perspective of a Black king, engineer, entrepreneur, father, and husband. We're about to take brown and Black excellence to a whole new level.
Family Unlocked starts now.
Yeah. All right, welcome back, everyone. This is Family Unlocked, and we have two guests here today. I want to introduce you to Pastor Sean and Minister Marcus. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. This is Fellow Stanley. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for the invite.
So today we're going to talk about mental health, but we thought this would be a really great opportunity to share some of the struggles our brothers here find that they face in ministry, but also in life. But before we get into that, let's introduce ourselves. We'll start with Pastor Sean.
All right. Thank you all for having me. It's great to be here with you. Yes, I'm Pastor Sean. I am the co-pastor of Bible Way Christian Center in San Jose. I co-pastor Bible Way with my beautiful wife, Loriana Gardere. We have been pastoring for a little over 2 years now. We've been serving the ministry a lot longer than that. My wife was raised in the church, but we've been the pastors for a little over 2 years now.
And doing a great job on my end.
We try.
That is so fast, 2 years.
Yeah, it went by.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But I think you were doing youth pastoring prior to that for several years. We actually started the church all together at the same time.
Yes.
So I saw you coming in, the rough man that you were, to what where we can become now. So that was a great way of watching your growth.
Yeah. We had kids together, not me and you, but our families. But yeah, so yeah, we grew up the faith together. We all kind of just came off the street. Yeah. Same time. Right. Trying to live right. And found our wives. Me and Sean both found our wives at the Bible Way. We went to stay together. We went to stay together. Yeah. The journey. We've been on this journey for a while.
Well, thank you so much for being here, because I really feel like we can learn a lot from you. I think one of the most interesting parts of why we wanted you to be on the panel today was because I feel that you are so relatable. You're so humanistic in the way that you pastor. And most importantly, I think that you have this humanistic approach that leaves the congregation wanting more. And that's a gift that I truly believe you're honored to have. And I want that in our presence right now. And I'm hoping that we can touch, the audience and have them understand that we all face difficulties, but most important that they're not alone.
Right.
So I'm hoping that's what we take from today's session or meeting together episode. But without further ado, we have Minister Marcus.
It's back again.
This is family too. Amazing. And another man of God that I find to be so interesting in how he breaks down his relationship with God, and he really connects, the pieces for all of us, and really feel like when I listen to you preach, I feel like God loves me, like he gets me, because if he can love you, then he could definitely love me. No, but no, definitely, like I feel like you bring that humanistic principle as well, and that perspective of, that God is love and God is good, and so.
Well, I'm Minister Marcus Trigg. I'm a minister at True Vine Ministries based out of Oakland, California. And as we said earlier, I have a family. I've been known our brother Sean since we were probably about 8.
Yeah.
I know Sean Gardere because we helped brother Sean move. So fellowship and that. So I'm here for the jokes.
Yeah.
That is a form of therapy and healing. So yeah.
You're over 6 feet, 200 pounds, you're gonna get asked. That's the rules.
Well, very appreciative. Thank you.
Exactly. And then, I mean, you guys are just solid dudes, right? So this is, it's more than that. There's a level of respect and reverence for both of you guys, especially for me in this journey, because Marcus helped push me to get into church, to start to do the stuff that I was doing for church. And I was doing that, and then we all, I came back to the faith. And then we grew from there. And so just to be able to have both of you guys are solid dudes. You're consistent. You are two of the most authentic people that I know of, and trust. That's probably one of the most biggest things. And then also there's a nurturing faith. And I think when iron sharpens iron, it's important, especially in this line of work that we do. So it's good to have, solid guys that can be here.
So thank you so much for being here. I think what I want to start with is if you guys want to share how you guys got into the faith and what brought you to what you do now for church.
So I grew up with my grandmother, my mother's mom, and she was going to church back when she used to take us, as kids, mama. And I remember seeing her up there preaching on a Sunday, and she would preach what she was saying. And I remember asking her, inquiring to her about Jesus, who is Jesus, and what does it mean to have a relationship with him? Mm-hmm. And so through that, she one day came to tell me when I was a teen that God had told her that I've been called to preach. So I just took it, put it back in the archives. It'll figure out whatever you say. Kept living my life, hiatus is short. Yeah. And then later on down the road, I ended up joining True Vine Ministries in Oakland. And the pastor there, Pastor Jr., he told me also that I was called to preach. So it's like a double confirmation of the thing. And so at the age of 23, I accepted my calling. And then shortly thereafter, I preached my first sermon. And I've been in ministry ever since. My wife in church. Everything. But yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. How we all met the lives. We gonna touch base on that.
Very much.
We gonna touch base on that. Brother Sean, how did you get called to this line?
Oh man. I would say when I was younger, I was in and out of church. My mom introduced me to the faith. And we were in and out of church. But I always really liked church. And had, baby love for God. And I call it baby love because I felt like, I love God. Yeah. And then you get to know God, and then you realize okay, I didn't necessarily love him the way I thought I did. Yeah. But so that was kind of my life. And then in high school, I came back. We started to go to church more consistently, again at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church in Vallejo. Prior to that, I was at St. John's in Richmond. And I was baptized at Friendship in Vallejo. And then I went to college. And right. But even in college, because I was in college in a different city. Yeah. So I just kind of moved away from the church that I was attending, went to college and did my thing. And there came a time where I was like, this is, I was in college like, this is not it. And I think I preached about it today. Yeah. I had some things pending. What does that mean? It means a lot. It means a lot. Well, I can say it in this way. There were several things in my life that could go wrong, and I needed them to be addressed. Because if they went wrong, it was going to get bad. Yeah. Right. And that's what I mean by pending. It wasn't official, but I was facing things. Right. And so At that time I was invited to Vital Way. And so I was like, I need to get in church. Like, I've always loved God, right? And I've always held the faith. I just wasn't really walking it out, and so I got invited to Bible Way, and I just began to serve. I'm an all in type of personality. So once I'm in, right? So I really just began to serve, elevated to youth pastor. I was youth pastor for over 10 years. And then privately or in my own career, I was an administrator. And so that's where I thought I would be for the rest of my life, because I would be an administrator. I had my career, making six figures, little boy from the hood. That was the goal. Like, make six figures and I won, right? And so I had won. I felt like I had won in life. And then my bishop, my father-in-law, he would tell me, like, you're the next one. Like, you're the succession plan. And for 5 years, I told him, like, no, I'm not. Right. And I said, I'd be a great assistant pastor. So, I would be a great guy to whoever Batman is. But it's not me. Right. And that was me for 5 years, and then God started to shift my heart. Yeah, he really did. And me and my wife started to have conversations. Like, oh man, like, I feel like this is what God is really calling us to do. And then I had to get my house in order. Yeah, right. Let my school district know, like, I ain't coming back. Yeah, and that was it. And that was about 2.5 years ago.
So I want to just because this is a kind of a family and relationship kind of podcast. So I want to go back to how you met Loriana and what was it first? What was it that kept you staying at Bible Way? What was that connection? Because I know for me, I just remember the story that Bishop told, and it was about running from the cops or something like that, and he had like some struggles with that, and I was like, oh my God, I know what that's like. And even though it wasn't that deep, like, it was crazy, but he just knew at that pivotal moment, like, this is not the life I wanted. And I felt like for me to see somebody up there, be in church, because I'm Mexican, I come from a Catholic background. And shame on you if you do any kind of, like, I'm Sean, from the church, but to be welcomed in that way, it was like, oh my God, this is relatable, right? Yeah. So what for you in that moment, and I'm going to go to you as well, that caught not your attention, but like caught that connection with God, like, this is my home?
That's a great question. Bible Way has always had like this warmth, that's hard to explain, but it's always been there. The other thing Bible Way had was men, and they had men that were similar to me. Like, I could tell was rough around the edges,
Yeah.
Understand? Right? Like, there were guys who were in the life, but they were worshipers. Yeah. And I'm like, man, this is something that I can see myself here, and having the warmth, and then having the men there that they weren't soft men, and I don't know if that was appropriate to say, but
they were men.
They were men. They were strong men,
Look like you.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Correct. And they had testimonies of places I had been. Exactly. And had been in environments and neighborhoods that I came from. And so seeing that made me, or allowed me to feel comfortable in those spaces. So I connected that way. And there were a bunch of other young adults at that time. Yeah. Right, Sean. That ministry was we would do things, and we all kind of got the choir. Yeah. So we would see each other not just on Sundays. We would see each other on Tuesdays because we had choir rehearsal. We would see each other like on Friday night because we had Friday night service. And then we see each other on Sunday. So we like build this family, and that's what really helped me kind of just stay solid.
And Loriana,
funny
how
enough,
did you know like that was the one?
Okay, that'll shorten the story. Good. How I knew my wife was the one is because for the first time in my life, I asked God to show me someone. Wow. I didn't ask him to show me her, but I had dated girls and I would tell them things like, hey, I'm abstinent. Like straight up, I'm abstinent. I've been abstinent for a year. I've been abstinent for a year and a half. And I would have girls tell me, well, that's stupid. You know what I mean? You know, like that's why. You know, like and there was one girl, she asked me, like, what do you do for fun? I was like, I go to Bible study. And so they were just like, exactly. That's what she said. She told my cousin, tell your cousin that some girl asked him when he does fun, don't say Bible study. Right? But that's where I was. You know what I mean? Like that's where I was. So then I just prayed, like, God, show me, because clearly who I'm choosing, like we're not on the same path. Right. And he showed me my wife. Right. He showed me Loriana. And at the time, I had never considered her. Like, she's my pastor's daughter. You know what I mean? And I love my church. I'm not good with relationships. I'm going to have to leave the church. Right? Like, I can see this play out here. Right?
It's so great to say that, because when we were dating, and one time I was thinking, and I told Sean, I go, if you break up, who takes custody of Bible?
Right.
That's going to be awkward.
Yes. That's how it works. Right? So for a while, I didn't pursue it. And the way God showed me, I had so much peace about it. He said, you asked me, so that's who it is. But I'm not saying you have to pursue her. But since you asked me, that's what I'm showing you. And so I had peace in waiting. And so I waited, and then our birthdays came up. I invited her out. We started rapping, and that's how it happened.
He showed you her. So what was that like? For people that, because I know what that's like, because I remember, I told you when God, I wasn't asking for anyone or anything, but I remember it was in a singles ministry class, and he walked by and God said, there's your husband. And I was like, oh, no. And I kept asking God to take him away. Like, I didn't want this. I'm not ready. I'm not mentally there. And he told me, if you ask me one more time, I'm going to take him away. And I was like, oh, okay, wait. Right. So I know what that conversation is like.
Right.
But for those that don't understand that piece of your relationship with God, what did that look like for you?
It's a difficult thing to explain a conversation with God. Because it's not audible. Yeah. It wasn't for me. I can't say how other people hear from God.
It's that still voice in your head, man.
Yeah.
Heart. That's telling me this is the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if like I said,
please.
So with me and my wife Candace, both of us prior to knowing each other came out of relationships where we just dealt with stuff we weren't going to do it no more. So we were both in the position of, I had been in church already for a while. I grew up there from teen to an adult. She had came off and on because her dad was a deacon there. By the time we got to know each other, we both had just got out of relationships where we weren't going to go back that direction anymore. So we knew that things we weren't going to tolerate. And so when we first started talking, I was just like, wasn't looking to be with up on that. Just like, we can be friends. I'm really focused on my calling. That's kind of where I was at. Yeah. But when looking for a relationship, I just really just focused on my calling, trying to stay focused, didn't want to get caught up in a hiatus. And so I'm saying I'm not perfect. So one day I was just in Bible study and I just seen her. It was like it was a light that was kind of like shining on her. And God just said, that's the one for you. That's her. And it's like after that, I had to have the courage and the desire to go and approach her and see what that was about. Yeah. And we, like Sean, we got to talking, got to hanging out, and next thing you know, we'll be married 18 years next month. So
wow.
Yeah. That's amazing. But I think that when God speaks to your heart and you get that peace about it, you just will.
That's what it is. Yeah. I think you said two things. One, the desire. Yeah. Like God gave me desire to pursue. Like I said before, it was never really on my mind. That's my pastor's daughter, right? So it's never there. And so romantically, like there was no desire initially, because I just kind of shut that off, right? But then once God kind of gave me peace about it, when you see somebody and like you have the peace of God in your interaction with them, you're like, oh, this is what you mean by she's the one.
And they start to look different.
They start to look different, right? Jeans look different. Yeah. When the jeans started to, they started to fit them. I never noticed how the jeans for
high-end. It is true, and you catch on to those things, like you said. All of a sudden, it's just something about with Erica. It was well, she always fine, but with her, but to me, what it was is when we did this, was it not the singles ministry, but it was the ministry where we were talking about relationships and what
Class.
it was a class, and then her answers is what like really drew me in because I was amazed at that she knew what she wanted.
Yeah.
And then she knew the type of husband that she wanted. And she was focused. She was like, this is what I want, and this is the type of wife I want. And I'm not the type of husband I want, and this is the thing that I'm trying to do. And I was wow, dude, she knows what she wants, Just taking this and I was like, okay, go ahead. And it was just everything about it. But what I liked about her even more so is that she was focused. Like I would see her at church, and then as soon as service was gone, I'm done. She was she was just like, I'm here with Jesus,
Yeah.
and I'm going home.
No time to the riff. Right?
No, and I disrespect it. And then as we started to talk more, and I met. I said this before. I used to tutor the kids, right? So that's kind of how I got in. Now that I'm gonna tell you how God works. That was never the intention, but He just opened the door. So, but
well, your son need help with math. Let me share that.
Well, it's funny because when we were dating,
What we do?
I went on a date and I said, I should introduce you to my kids. Like we've been dating for a while. And he goes, I know your kids. And I said, what? How do you know my kids? And he goes, I'm their tutor. I said, you're the tutor? Because I was so shut off with that, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think what similar to you, as soon as I had a conversation with her, that's kind of what, like you said, it's that audible voice that she was talking, and God was like, this is a woman who needs to be like loved, who needs to be like that. And I felt like when we were talking, I could see through God's eye.
And I think what's crazy about that, and I think you probably agree with this too, both of you guys, that when you see your wives in that light, it's like she's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen in your life, right? Nothing else matters. It's like you're really just tunnel vision on her, right? And it is the physical. I'm not gonna lie, it's the physical what you see at first, but it's that godly aura, right? That spirit that's in them that's connecting with your spirit, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so that is one of the most beautiful things you can have or experience, when it comes to being with your mate. Yeah.
Okay. So my next question is being men of faith. Like now that we understand how you got into church, well, we kind of shared a little bit about what drew you to your church, like what kept you there opposed to other churches you visited.
So as I said before, my grandmother had took the church when we were little, and we went to a Kojic church growing up. And so she had moved away. I was staying with my grandparents on my dad's side.
That's church. Yeah, right.
Yes. Yes, Kojic. And so I was a teenager doing what teenage boys do, hiatus, and I always felt like a drawing of God, like pulling me towards it. Like even before I was in church, there's always like a level or a certain distance that I just couldn't go. Like, you go over your friends do certain things, and it's like for me, I had to cut off. I can't pass that line. I can't cut off that threshold. And so that to me was always like a check, for me. And so I realized when I was a teenager, I need to get somewhere where I can be fed. Like I'm missing something. And at the time, my sister and her then boyfriend were going to a church, and they said, "Hey, come on out to a service with us one Sunday and check it out." Went to True Vine Ministries and became a member, and that's history. And so growing up there from a teen to an adult, it was like Sean was a family environment. There's a lot of men there who were examples of how you should be in your household, how you should be as a man of God, how you should carry and conduct yourself. So I grew there, and then the pastor at the time was like, my spiritual grandfather. So I grew up with my grandparents. I was always more keen to taking advice from those who were my elders. I could sit around and just circle with them all day long. So I gravitated towards him, and he just poured into me.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've been there since. So
there's this connection, right? And for you, Bishop.
Yeah, it was Bishop. Bishop actually reminded me a lot of my dad. So he had a lot of traits and things like that. And then we used to geek out. He loved Star Trek and he loved science fiction and everything like that. So we would always talk about things of that nature. But there was a lot of respect for him because just the man that he was. He was in the Marines. So did anybody know that he was in the Marines? But I think the one thing that I gravitated towards him was that he was one of the few men that I knew that was like he had like a level of strength. I mean, just internal strength with all stuff that he was battling. And I was like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like, and he was still standing and still love God. And this is, I don't know if a lot of people, know this. I think I was the last person that he baptized when we did it on a retreat. And I remember we were in the mountains and stuff like that. And he was like, hey, you the last one. And like, you better turn out to be something. And, and so there was a level of just respect and whatnot. And so I gravitated towards that, just the leadership. But like Pastor Sean was saying before, is that there's just a lot of good brothers in there. And so I have to mention Pastor Ray, who is such a mighty man of God. And I have a lot of respect for him and what it is, the leadership that he provides. To me, he's a spiritual father as well, because um, you can tell that he's lived a life, right? And he's done stuff, but he loves God.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a worshiper, and he will jump up and holler and shout and everything like that. And he is a man of God. He loves his family. And so there's a lot of that. And so when you have that, and when a father figure was absent in your life growing up, and you meet men who have traits and qualities that represent these are things that I want. These are, you kind of gravitate towards. So that's my long-winded answer.
No, but I think that is so good because you think about men and the struggle it is to connect with other men when there is a positive experience, right? When it's something that's not related to drinking or drugs or men or women or, that kind of life, because you see it so much play out like on TV or in the music. But when you connect something deeper in a vulnerable way and still feel safe to be able to connect in that way, I think that's an experience that many of us desire to have and don't know how to say it and don't know how to recognize it.
Yeah, I think that's what, like, we talk about Eric. So that's how me and Marcus got connected, was through our Uncle Eric, and he was, to me, the prototype in certain kind of ways, because in terms of success. So when it came to me, like I said, there was certain people who I had reverence and respect for, and Eric was an earner. Eric used to invest in us and whatnot, and he was funny. He had all these good qualities about him. And so what I used to do is, I kind of would build myself an idea of this is what a man is supposed to be. Right. So then as you get older and you start to yearn for more, I guess there's something about a man needing the guidance of another man. Then you start to look towards that in other areas. And when you can find it, especially fellowship, at a church, you gravitate towards that, because you're like, I'm still learning. To be perfectly honest with you, I think there's never a level that you don't need the guidance of a father or a male figure, right? That's just what it is, right? At certain levels. And so even though, I'm older and I can give that to my kids, people who are younger, I still need that as well, right? So that's kind of like, what we've done, what it is that, it's kind of how I gravitate to it.
There's this like compartmentalizing what a man, like, okay, this man for me, like he's an example of what a husband is, and then this man is an example of what God-fearing man is. So to walk into a church and see that all in one, that's like rare.
Yeah.
Right. So you see someone that looks like you, who looks rough around the edges, who likes Star Trek and loves God. And so there's this familiarity, right? In that process, as you're going through your connection with God, as I mentioned before, like you'll have this vulnerability, right? And all these emotions, all these feelings come up. What was that like to be able to have all these emotions, have all these maybe stresses or guilt or, whatever that emotion was for you guys, and still remain steadfast in your desire to continue your faith, continue to connect with God? because that's a real, like, that could do so much to someone to where they're just like, I don't even know why I'm doing this anymore. I'm going back to what I know. I know the streets. I know this life. I don't have to feel this vulnerable. I don't have to put everything I worked so hard for. You know, I could possibly lose everything. What was that?
I think for me, and I touched on this a little bit today when I preached this morning. When I said at a certain point in your life, you're gonna have to realize or make a decision on whether or not you're going to experience the trials and tribulations that we all will go through in life with God or without God.
Yeah.
Because either way it goes, you're going to go through something. Either way it goes, you're going to feel vulnerable at times. So do you want to experience that with God on your side? You can go to Him and ask for help, ask for guidance. Do you want to experience that with people that are men of God in your life that you can, lean on? And I think my pastor said it best when he said that as a man or a woman, you should have somebody that's above you, like an elder, somebody on your level that can, you guys sharpen, and somebody below you that you can pour into. So that's like a 3-stage thing that you constantly have going on in your life. But are you willing to go through what you're going through without God?
So there was this revelation of life is going to still life.
Yes.
But I don't want to live life without God.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I think I have an interesting take on this. As far as this vulnerability and shame, right? I think coming into the church, being a male, I think we experience that differently, right? I think especially when you come into the church from a rougher background, people are just happy that you're there, right? I think sisters experience and get put in a space of shame a lot more than men do, right? And so, yeah, unfortunately, right? And so a man can come in like attempted murder, all kind of stuff, right? It's like, brother, I'm so happy you here.
You made it, but
Yeah.
And so, like, just coming from a rougher space, I think I was just welcomed and people were just happy that I was there, right? So I didn't really feel the shame. I felt like love and gratitude and, like, hey, we got this brother here, right? So that's kind of what I felt and what I experienced. Now, the vulnerability for me came when I came to the church and I would see brothers that were more like me. I was similar to my sister Erika, that I would just leave right after church, right? And I would tell her, though I saw some men, they weren't really like my age and they were older, but I felt like the guys that are here aren't people I would hang out with outside of church. Like the OGs were, like I saw them, right? But the guys that were more my age were not. And so the vulnerability came when I got challenged to start hanging around. Start fellowshipping. And I'm like, these not the guys I grew up with. And so I'm here to get the word, and I appreciate that. But this fellowship you're trying to put me in is where I found like the vulnerability coming out, because you're asking me to be in fellowship and in community, like closer, not just like we go to church together. It's cool, but like actually spending time with people that I had not ever spent time with, and Bible Way really helped me grow in that way, because there are some of my closest, most trusting friends now, that came from that space. For instance, like with Sean, I would call Sean and ask him like, hey, this Marvel world, like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, what is this, man? And so I'm trying to get into it, right? And I would call Sean like, dude, like, what is this? And before, like, I didn't necessarily have a respect for that, right? But then you get to know people's hearts. You get to know that they're good people, and some of the things that we were taught, coming from certain spaces, like it's not as valuable as I thought it was, right? And then you start to respect people for where they come from, and respect that they have a different perspective on life, and respect their minds, and that was the vulnerability that I dealt with, was how do I respect people that aren't people that I necessarily grew up with, and then I'm finding this affinity for them. Like, man, some of my closest friends now, I would have called a nerd, back in the day, and I don't mean that with any slight. You know what I mean? But it's like some of the coolest people, and I can start naming names. I just don't want to, right? At the church because that's not cool, right? But but I would say that was my vulnerable space, not exposing who I was, because who I was kind of was celebrating, like, oh, now this guy is in the church, right? My vulnerable space was not holding on to that,
Yeah.
right? Like
Growing out of that.
growing out of that. And now it's just a testimony. It's not what I identify with. It's losing my identity, right? And taking up Christ's identity.
Yeah, there it is.
Right, is where I found my vulnerability, because all up until then, to my mid-20s, I'm from Richmond. I'm this, I'm that, right? And then allowing that identity to be pushed aside to take on the cross, right? That's where I found my vulnerability, not what I came in with.
Yeah. And I just want to touch base on this. I think, at least for me, it was more of, I know what it is to be without them because I've been doing it.
Right.
Right. So I know the struggles. I know, like, you know, you can get lonely, you can get depressed, you can have anxiety. I know all that stuff to do it without them. So I was like, well, it ain't working without them. So I might as well try this and see if I can be consistent with it. But a lot of it had to do, I think it's not only this, you can go to a church, but there's something about the fellowship in it. The fellowship is kind of God, because like frontline, having like brothers is just in there and you're being active, but you have to make it a choice. Like when I first started going to Bible work, I only went to Bible study. I never went to a church service like for like 3 to 6 months, never. But I just was like, okay, well, whatever. And then I started to go more and more, and then you started to, you know, really get involved. But you also have to get to a point where you're willing to be vulnerable to an extent, and you're really willing to shed that persona of who you are in the world, right? And to me, like you know, we'll mention Pastor Ray or Minister Alex and whatnot, when you can see strong brothers like this able to worship, and you see tears coming down their eyes, you see all that stuff, and you're getting yourself in the word, you start to realize, oh, there's a reason why they're worshiping. There's a reason why they're celebrating. I mean, amongst everything, but when you understand their story, you're like, oh, they're not supposed to be here. So you can start to see God's grace and mercy upon their lives. And then you start to reflect on, like, okay, who are you in this context of it? So I wanted to go towards God because I knew what I was doing wasn't working for me. But I think the pull was, I kind of was like, okay, how far can you take it? So sometimes you get to a point where you're trying to, I won't say almost challenge, but I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do this, how far are you going to walk with me? You're going to do this. And it's been a journey. This relationship is challenging at times, because with me, I like a level of control, and I can like to see where I'm going. But when you have to trust, the trust is the hard one. That's with God. Yes, that's the struggle, because you like, these numbers ain't, you know, they not at this now, they ain't baffled, and you know, all this stuff. And so it's a level of trust. It's a level, it's like, okay, I need you to, you have that baby Christian where, okay, the fact that you come is good, right? The fact that you read a couple of sermons, but I'm gonna need you to go deeper. Yeah. Right. I'm gonna need you to understand more and more and more. And I think that's why I have so much respect for you, Sean, especially when it comes to the Bible study, because you are teaching the congregation to, like, no, you need to learn this word because you need to get it in, right? You need to get in, and you need to be able to cultivate that. And if you want to be an image bearer, like you said you want, right, then this is what it looks like. Like when people see you, they need to see this. And so that's a challenge. It's like, you know, they really shared a lot of the stuff on, like, okay, these are areas that I need to work on. And to me as a parent, I feel like that's the best relationship that I can have between God and me, is how I parent. And so my first, you know, congregation is my kids and my family. And so when they see me, they're seeing a reflection of God. So how am I going to be able to do it? So I have to live this life out, and not for me, for them. Right. So that's kind of, you know, I know it's a long-winded answer, but that's kind of what it is.
I think it's good. I think it also makes me think of areas where you are struggling, right? That relationship with God is so needed, right? But there's still that struggle. And in those times when you are facing stress or anxiety or depression, I know we shared that, it can be so. I don't think I don't think the congregation or just us as witnesses to your crisis, whether it's on the prayer line or when you're pastoring or you're, preaching a message, we don't realize what goes into getting that done. And the pressure, because I think about like when people were asking us, like, okay, where's the podcast? Where's the next episode? They had no idea. Like you guys saw like how much it took to just get one out, and or when I go into a session, into therapy, like to assist these people who sometimes it's just a word you give them and they're hanging on to dear life. Like, Erika, just give me something. And the pressure of like, can I make or break this person right now? Am I going to see them again?
Yeah.
I mean, I can come home and just be so depleted from just that one interaction, but I have 7 other sessions, right?
Yeah.
So for you guys, I can't imagine the feeling of my salvation lies in your hands, right? Like, I mean, it may not be that deep, but I would assume that person that's coming in, because I know I was that person. I came in, I'm like, tell me something because I barely got enough to get by today.
Yeah.
Right. To know that must be so heavy. But what do you guys do to ensure that you're not taking that on as well? Because like we mentioned about compassion fatigue, what compassion fatigue is hearing trauma over and over again to where your body and your mind starts thinking, am I thinking this trauma? Like there's like I do hospice care sometimes, right? So sometimes I have to think about like, is life sometimes where's the beauty in life? Please God show me it, because all I'm seeing is death right now, right? And the saddest parts of death. So at what I have to make sure that when I get home, I'm not bringing that home to my kids. And so I hold them, and there's thoughts that come into my mind sometimes that one day I'm not going to be here and they're not going to be able to hold me. And that will be so, so overwhelming that now when I go into sessions, I don't have that compassion anymore, because I'm like, please don't tell me another sad story. Right? Yeah. But as I can say that as a woman, I can voice that. Yeah. I'm allowed to have that vulnerability. I'm allowed to say, I'm having a hard day. I'm sad. I want to cry. Like I've watched another mother lay their child to rest, but a man, especially a man of color, they are not allowed to even show. There's like there's a hard stop, right? Like you can share this much, but you can't show them the weakness, especially as a pastor or as a minister, as a deacon. Like I need you to wrap up that sadness, and I need you to come pray for me.
Yeah, right.
So how do you deal with that?
I think that's also a space of vulnerability. The idea of just being real and authentic. Like I'm going through some things. I might cry about it. I might be angry about it. But in the face of my kids, I still have to show up and be a father. So to show up to be a man of God, to show them, hey, son, you can be angry. And sometimes you might act on that anger, but you can come back. And that's your forgiveness. You can come back and wipe your slate clean, right? Tomorrow is a brand new day with fresh grace and brand new mercies, right? So it's a vulnerability just being in that state by itself. For me, I feel like that when things get hard, I usually turn inward. You know what I mean? I don't verbalize a lot of turn inward. And I try to just find some kind of solitude. You know what I mean? And really dive into what God has already done for me. Being mindful of his promises that he will never leave you nor forsake. Jeremiah 29. Right, it's not the process, you know what I mean? Yeah. And just thinking about those things helps me to process, my day.
Now, I'm gonna ask you this: what happens when your humanity can be too much, meaning that, yeah, I can work. This flesh is, I'm feeling certain, it's flesh. I'm feeling a certain kind of way, right? And I'm battling, I'm struggling. You know what I mean? Like in those inner moments where you're just like, if you have loss, if you have whatever, you're dealing with it. You're just like, ugh, this word ain't hit like it normally hits. Like, what do you do? What's another way? 'Cause you say you go inward, so is there another thing that you do as well?
Well, as we spoke earlier, that was me this week. Dealing with some issues that from the job and the family stuff. That was me this week, just frustrated and angry. And you find some question saying, God, like really? Like I'm going through something else. I just got done going through something else. Like at what point do I just break through and get like a moment of some kind of long-term peace, right? But then mindful talks about, as a soldier of Christ, you must endure hardship. Yeah, right. It's not you might, it's you must. Right. So this comes with the assignment, comes with the territory. I believe that God will equip us to be able to bear these things. But it comes with, like Pastor Sean would say, knowing God's word. If you don't have no word, then you can't find out these things that the flesh is going to bring to your attention. Right. It's not easy. It's difficult every day. Right. The cross is heavy to pick up and bear, and to deny yourself the flesh and walk, upright there. It's hard to do that. Even as a man of God, it's hard to do that.
Especially
because we're facing the same thing the world is faced with, but we gotta hold ourselves in a certain light. We're expected to, and so there's vulnerability in that. Man, I can't act out. It's what I do. I'm supposed to be there to God.
Yeah.
So I can't get angry. I can't come at you crazy if you disrespect my wife. Like, what are we talking about? Yeah, even Peter got mad. Come on, man. Right? Even Jesus probably went. Come on, man. You know what I mean? So it's just being able to be authentic and say, hey, I'm not perfect, but I still can pray for you. I'm not perfect, but I'm still going to be there for you. Even if you do something that you're ashamed of, I could be there in your corner to oppose you, keep you in prayer. I'm not going to judge you because I know we're not perfect.
Yeah.
We're all trying to get better. We're all trying to perfect ourselves better. We all have to, stay in that grace and mercy. So it's just like Eric said, being humanistic in my approach, authentic. Like I'm not looking at you like, oh, shame on you. No, I'm not. I know what's up, right?
Yeah.
It seems like there's about 3 questions to answer.
I
Now,
love how you break things down for us.
yeah, you mentioned like how do we kind of deal with the stresses and anxieties? I would say very dysfunctionally. So it's how I'm dealing with them currently. And I've created these rhythms that work for me, right? There's something that I tell myself, and I kind of just live my life this way. And trouble don't last always, right? And I've almost been conditioned for that, and I'll go back to, and I can picture vividly being in football practice. And I was talking earlier how I had a coach who gave me asthma. I had never had asthma before or after him, right? But he was honest, right? And I just remember doing up downs.
Yeah.
And with no count, it wasn't like we're doing 20. It's just we're doing up downs. And I used to just think, he can't keep us out here forever. And that's just the mindset that I developed at 11. Like, we can't be out here forever. I don't know when he's going to stop us, but I just know we won't be out here forever, right? And so I've taken that into adulthood, right? Where my stressors as a pastor are on a weekly cycle, right? They're on a weekly cycle. I know that Sunday night, I'm going to start worrying about the message, right? I need to figure out where I'm going and things like that.
So you just finished one message and now you're worried so you just had 2 hours for
Right.
finishing the message and now you're like,
So
back into this?
yeah, so my week really starts Sunday night, right? And there's a break between like Sunday morning and Sunday night, right? Because in between there is euphoria.
Yeah.
It is the best that I feel, It's in between 12 around noon when I finish preaching and around 6 p.m. when I start to think about my next message, right? And I also learned, so I'll try to figure that out, but I've also learned to just kind of break everything on Mondays. Like I try not to think about anything.
Nice.
Right. And so that's my joy. Like I find joy in that day. But I know the storm is coming, right? But I need Monday. Like I need Monday.
Yeah.
I'm so, so much anxiety, so much stress. It's gonna start to build from Tuesday on, right? And it builds, right? And then it comes to a head on Sundays. And then when it's released, when it's over, it's like, man, who wants to go get ice cream? You know what I mean? Like, who just, and I don't know if that's the most healthy way to go about it. It's just the rhythm that I've created for myself, where Mondays are the day.
Yeah.
I just crash out and I don't do anything Monday. I don't allow my mind to go into these spaces, and I need those Mondays. Now that living on like these opposite ends of the spectrum of like heavy stress and anxiety and then nothing, I don't know if that's healthy.
I would ask you the way that you're able to kind of flip it to this isn't going to last forever, right? That's a really great emotional regulation tool, because when we're depressed or sad or going through some stresses, we feel like it's going to be forever, right? And this is where a lot of people lose hope, right? But your ability to do that, that's a really great technique.
Right.
My question for you is there any way, because to jump back to Tuesday, to that cycle of here comes the storm, and to define it in that way can create already a physiological response, right?
Absolutely.
So if we're able to kind of reframe it, like I am the queen of reframing, I totally believe the way that you look at it is the way that you're going to respond.
Right.
So if there is a way to say, I went Tuesday, let's go get them. We're in this, we're going to do this.
Right.
Rather than, I remember the up downs. Like you're comparing your asthma attack to preparing for preach, right? So is there a way that we can reframe it just so that we can see the blessing? And not that you're not seeing the blessing in it, but that must be a scary place to be, to know.
I love the space and I appreciate the space. It's a weird dichotomy, but I need to feel it because without it, I feel disconnected from God. When I feel that, it makes me reflect. It makes me remember God. Many times in scripture, remember what I did, remember who I was, remember how I brought you through. Like he's always trying to tell his people to remember. And we struggle with that. We struggle with remembering. Every week I'm asked to remember. Right? And so it's like fasting. Yeah, fasting hurts the flesh. Right? But fasting reminds you, because as soon as you want to eat and you're fasting, you're like, I know why I'm fasting. I'm trying to get closer to God. So the pain of the hunger draws you closer to God. The pain of the stress, the pain of the anxiety puts me back in his arms. Like, I got you. I had you last week. I had you the week before that. If you watch me after I pray, after I preach, I always go down and pray. I always thank them for sending me through another week. Yeah. For bringing me through another message. Right. That's the first thing I do after I preach is thank them for bringing. Why? Because I've been leaning on you since Tuesday. And it came through again. Right. And I'll start this cycle. And yes, it's painful. Yes, it's stressful. But I know where it takes me. It takes me back to I've got to get back to God. Right. Every morning when I get to church, I go to the altar first. If I don't go to the altar before I start my day, I feel like I'm not in a spiritual space to even pastor. Right. And that's what the stress does. That's what it reminds me. It's like the hunger when you got to get close to God. So that stress sends me to the altar, so
I was going to say, unless you use it as a technique that propels you toward what you need to go. Because in parenting, for me, like that pressure, I'm like, bring it on, baby. Because I was that mom who we had to pick up we got the call. Your son's in the ICU. He's had an accident. Or if you don't, another call. If you don't come get your son right now, we don't know what's going to happen to him. Or your son has this disorder and we don't know if what it's going to look like for his future. And I remember, during those times, I'm like, Sean, screw our feelings right now.
Right.
Let's go get them.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to tell me what's going to happen. And this is where God comes through the most for me.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and I think that's where, our upbringing comes in, where we're like, I've never been a chump. And this weakness that I feel, or this uncomfortable feeling I feel, I'm going to feel it again, but I know I have God. Right. This is the thorn. Right. This is the thorn. And I'm so like thankful that I have that, because I've seen so many people freeze in pressure or lay down and
Give up.
allow the life to take over. And I think that's the kind of stuff that I take into therapy with me is I know what this feels like. And I know that there's a way out.
Yeah.
I don't know what this, I never want to take their situation away from them. I want them to feel their feelings. But I know that we will come through the other side.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if I can just piggyback off what you said, I think when he's referring to the storm, he's not looking at it as necessarily a bad thing. When you think of a storm, it's what I do. When it comes to be prepared, it's okay, I have to get prepared. Yeah. If the storm doesn't come, then I'm laid back and I'm chill. Then I'm not ready for it's coming. So the storm puts me in the mindset of get ready. You had your one day off. Now you see the winds and the clouds coming, the hurricanes coming, put your windows up, hunker down, right? Because you got to go at it again. Right. So that storm is just a mechanism to remind you to get prepared.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's coming.
Yeah. I think people understand how much anxiety you get when you are, because there's a level, at least for me, maybe it's too heavy for some people, but when you're preaching, you're given a word, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
At least for me, it's a big deal because there's somebody that needs to hear this. Yeah. There's somebody that needs to hear this. And so I'm pacing and I'm like, especially the day of, I am just like, Lord, just give me the strength to make it up there. Because right, you have so much anxiety because you know that this word is that. And then as soon as you get in the flow, oh man, you just go. And then once you're done, it's just like, I can breathe. Like you can do that. But there's a level of like, there's somebody, the way that I view it, there's somebody here that's struggling, whether they're struggling with necessarily anything that I said, but somebody's telling them something. And that word can get them through, whether it's that day, that moment, that week, it can get them through. So I take very seriously because I was in their seat. I was that person who just needed to hear a word, who came in by the way, felt lost, and like I need to hear something. Yeah. And somebody said a word that just was addressing something that I was going through, and sometimes, like you said, you can just be doing these base hits, right? These just base hits, but somebody needs to hear that, right? So I take it seriously because God has selected me at that time to get to deliver this message. And I usually am praying, Lord, just remove me and use me to be able to do what it is that you're asking me to do. But what I just want to touch base on something that you said is that when you go into, the sanctuary, the first thing you do is you go to the sanctuary and pray, right? I think that's amazing because I think of it, how many of us do that when we get ready to go into our job, right? We go into it with the same mindset, like, I got to deal with these people again, as opposed to praying, people, give me strength, give me the ability, allow me to be an image bearer and be a reflection of you so I can be able to do this job to the best of my ability or whatever it is. And I think that's so important that you take God with you when you're doing these things. Yes, you look at it from the standpoint, well, you go to church, so of course you're going to do that. But no, God is not only at the church. God needs to be your household. He needs to be with you and all these things. So I love hearing that. Like you should do, whether you just do it in your car. Lord, give me the strength because I'm going to need it. Like something like that. But just pray over the situation, pray over the job, pray over whatever it is, and be able to go to the altar. The first thing. Yeah. That's just really hitting that word.
Well, no, what I take away from all three of you is there is a reframing for you guys. Maybe it doesn't look like a certain way, but the reframing is, I'm going to do this with God because I get to help someone in this situation, whether the pressure of their salvation lies in my hands, but thank you for choosing me, God.
I'm honestly honored, much as my fellow brothers have the anxiety and the sleep stuff. I'm honored to be able to be even considered and chosen to do something like this. It's funny because like he was like at some point we kind of nervous. I'm like, I don't want that. Well, I'll do this, but I don't want to do that. Just give a little bit. And so it's an honor to even be considered. And I take that responsibility very seriously. You know what I mean? Like when I have to preach, I'm very dedicated to what I have to preach. Select time to steal away, to pray, to get into the word. To isolate myself from media, from music and all those things so I can really hunker down and be able to use to pour into somebody. Because sometimes you never know when you're preaching, Eric said, there's somebody there that's hanging on every word. You know what I mean? And I don't ever want to be in a position where I'm misleading anybody.
Yeah.
Like I was telling Sean, my job is no matter what I'm going for, I still got to point you to Jesus.
Right.
Whether it's through my testimony, right?
Yeah.
Or through the word itself, right? Or even through my lifestyle, what you see. Man, Mark's had a rough week, but look, he's still here on Sunday, praise God. Right? So it's like, what does that look like? Being vulnerable enough to say, hey, my week was terrible, but I'm still here praising God. I'm still letting my life shine. I'm still being an ambassador for Christ. I still got to draw the world in to God. Yeah. And they see God through how we react and behave through what's going on in the world.
Amen. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Well, I have one last question. As a boy mom and as a wife,
You smacking this thing. See, you're right.
how can we support you? Because it clearly, like, I think, it's good to hear what it takes to do this kind of work. Because I think sometimes people think you just have it naturally and, it's no big deal. But to know that you sacrifice willingly and that you don't even see it as a sacrifice, but there is this determination to seek God in such a way that you are sacrificing time away from your kids, time away from your family, time away from life, time away from yourself. But the beauty that you don't see it as a sacrifice, that's a connection as a person in your congregation that's like, dude, cool, like that's so how can we support you? Like, wives too, like I want to make sure that he feels nurtured, he feels connected. I think sometimes I forget to even check in with him. Like, how are you feeling today? And even my son sometimes say, like, I don't need your therapy today. And I'm like, I'm not even giving you the best like right now.
I got more.
I'm a mom. Like, I want to know what's going on. Like,
Right.
a mom will tell you what to do. That's not a therapist. Therapists don't do that, But how can we as your partners make sure, because I'm sure we're not hitting it every time, like when not that we're not doing everything all the time, right? But we know what to do in that aspect.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong. We are doing it, but what I'm saying is like,
I got to
make sure that you guys are feeling spiritually nurtured in that way.
I feel like, at least for me, not to make excuses, we all deal with our stuff, but I feel like as Black men, men of color, we have so much more on our shoulders when we walk out the door every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we're dealing with that on top of being men of God, on top of being looked at a certain way because of the color of our skin, without even being known. Like you said, you were screaming in the church. I was going, the nerves don't come, but do you realize, wow, we have come out in Christ? Yeah. Right?
But an important piece too is like I tell the kids, the first thing they see is a Mexican kid. They don't see a child of God.
Right. Yeah.
And that you carry that.
Right.
That's where it doesn't matter whether you have glasses on, you're still a Black man. And you will forever be looked at as a threat.
You do.
Right? So carrying that on top of everyday life, right?
So I think for me, it's just a matter of like, if I come home and you can see that there's a disgruntled little girl vibe that's off, either say, hey, man, how was your day? Pray for me, to yourself, or just, give me my space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not be just give me my space to just kind of decompress from other stuff with outside.
Don't take it personal.
Right. And don't take it personal. Like I'm not trying to engage because I had a long day, you had a long day, and maybe you were off and I wasn't. You know what I mean? Just give me that space to kind of woosah and then come back to the moment, right? like you said, the time between 12 p and 6 p.m. Let me have that moment, whatever it is, just get back around it. And then I got you. You know what I mean? Because for us, being in ministry and being, just living in the world, we have to constantly be on it. And you guys might not see it like that, but we look at it like we have to carry this family.
Yeah.
Right? It's God, and then the male of the house, and then the woman of God. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the order. Right? So for us, we're looking at I have to look together, because if I break down, she's gonna break down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I'm not showing my hand up together, she's gonna break down. The kids are gonna break down. Right? It's all gonna fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we have this thing that we have to constantly be strong. Right? And sometimes it's to our pleasure.
Yeah.
Right? So being able to, confide in you, our spouses, and just know that you guys got us, and that you're not taking one of our mood swings, our personal, but you understand that we're going for things in the world. We're trying to be the men of God we've been called to be. We're trying to be great. We're trying to be great fathers. We're trying to be good in our jobs. We're trying to be all these things, but we still got to deal with what's going on in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't have the space to just find out.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes because we're so far away, we don't need the time to connect and fellowship, and just shoot the breeze, right? So we have to just keep pushing, you know what I mean? So just recognizing that we have those moments as well. And then, like, more importantly, just pray for us, speak us in prayer.
Trust my needs. I think, and I can only speak from a male perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so when I say this, that doesn't mean women can't, right? I can just tell you how I function as a man. I think men do a great job of navigating life on needs, on just their needs, right? But there's other things we may want, right? But I think we're built in a certain way where we will make sacrifices, right? But then we do have needs. And so when I express what those needs are, I need you to trust that they're not desires. I need you to trust that they're not just things that, I just want to do. I need you to trust that they're needs, because I'm functioning on needs right now. I'm navigating space on needs. So I might need 4 hours to go study. I've done a lot of sacrificing, and I've reduced my day as small as I can for my study. I've reduced it down to 3 hours. I've reduced it,
Yeah.
I've given you everything that I have, but I need these 4 hours. And if you don't give me those 4 hours, like, you're gonna further stress me out. Not you, but
Like,
having 3 hours is gonna further stress me out.
Yeah.
Right? I'm having to explain it so much where I'm just I just need you to trust my needs. Right? There may be other things that I just need in life physically. There just may be needs, and I just need you to trust that they're needs. Trust that they're not desires, that they're not wants, that I'm operating and I'm functioning on needs. I'm moving our family forward. I'm getting things accomplished in life, but on needs. And so I need you to trust when I tell you this is what I need. I need you to trust my needs. And that's all I need. Right? Like that's what I need. I need you to trust my needs. And I think that will allow my sacrifices to be easier to make.
Yeah.
Right? Because I have to trust that I can sacrifice here, because when I come and I express my need,
will be met.
it'll be met.
Yeah.
So that allows me to freely be the man of the house, the man of God that I'm called to be in all these other spaces, because I trust that you trust my needs.
Yes. That's good. That's a clip right there.
Yeah.
So it's good stuff. If I had to quickly include mine, I like the prayer. Definitely pray for me. I would also say this, and I hope it doesn't come off too harsh or anything like that. Is that sometimes if I'm being vulnerable, and this is just general for men, if I'm being vulnerable, it's not. I'm not comparing our struggles. If I tell you about my day, I want you to be able to receive it, and not necessarily like diminish the struggle, right? And I think sometimes so many men, when they're going through stuff, it's diminished. It's like Okay, he's supposed to be tough. He's supposed to go through it. But there's a lot of men who die silent.
Yeah.
Because of what's inside is not allowed to go. So when they're, especially if they're interacting with their significant others, you are a safe space. You are the most vulnerable. I haven't been vulnerable where you are the most vulnerable I am. So when I'm coming to you in a vulnerable moment, I need you to be able to receive it. You don't necessarily have to solve it. You don't have to do anything, but I need you to be able to receive it. Because there's times that I'm struggling. Like, and you guys know, like, it's a struggle, man. It's a struggle to lead. It's a struggle to survive. I am struggling. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't know. I just don't know what to do. And so in those moments, prayer helps. In those moments, just loving helps. In those moments, like your needs, like I don't need a lot. I don't require a lot. I don't need you to do anything. Sometimes I just want veg out on the bed, eat some ice cream, and watch TV.
Right. And here's the thing, because you use the language one, and that's fine. And that's how it's viewed. He just wants some me time. Maybe he needs it.
Yeah.
Like I need to decompress. I need this. You know, I need to sit in the car for 15 minutes right before I come in. Like I need it. To you, it looks like leisure time. Right. And I get it. But I'd be so much better if I get in the house and I can just get this need back real quick, you know.
Because you're prepared. So, and then we'll talk about this before, but why do you think guys go to the bathroom so long, right? It's that sometimes you just need that. You just need that time. Like, you just need the time. I'm not doing it.
No.
Yeah. And
I did it the other day. I was like, this is wonderful. Yeah.
You just need it. And I think if we can learn to respect that vulnerability, that male vulnerability, I think it will open up a lot for men because, unfortunately, we're taught, we are conditioned to not show feelings.
I'm saying the vulnerability of expressing that you have needs, or for us to recognize that these are needs rather than wants.
I mean, in terms of recognition, I don't know. I think sometimes that can be difficult, but I would say being able to express that, because we are conditioned, like I was saying, to be tough in all aspects of your life. You're conditioned to be tough. You're conditioned to suck it up. You're conditioned to receive pain and move with it, right? But what happens when that starts to internalize?
Yeah. And we're definitely not conditioned to talk about these things all the time.
No.
You got to poke and prod and probe to pull those things out.
We
just have to lay it out there. You know what I mean? Just strap it on the back and keep pushing.
And as our significant others, as our wives, right? I wholeheartedly believe, and we're talking about good marriage.
Yes.
Because all of this stuff can get abused, right? And reverted. But I would wholeheartedly believe that if you truly felt it was a need, you meet it.
Yeah.
Like, as my wife, so in that vulnerable space, when I do express it, your response will tell me if you trust me or not. If you trust it, if you not trust me, if you trust that it's really a need. And that's why I say trust that it's a need, because I believe you'll meet a need. I believe as my loving wife, you will meet a need. So if you don't respond in a way, that means you don't really think it's a need. And that's what I'm saying, trust that it's a need when I tell you.
But I think now that I go to graduate school and I see so many students that do not look like me, okay? They are a different race, right?
Right.
I see maybe 20% African American, and there's maybe 2% Latino. I have learned that as women of color, because I'm a woman, right? I don't know about what it is to be a male student there, but as a woman, we have to justify our needs constantly. So I think that women were conditioned to keep going, and we can't even meet our own needs because our kids' needs always come first, even before our husbands, even though we biblically understand the principles, we understand the biblical principles, but do we act them out all the time? I can guarantee we don't, because our children always come first.
Right.
And we don't mean it. We don't even think we are, right? But trust me, I want to make sure you and Gio just be quiet and give them what they want, and then we'll come and talk about your needs later.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so I think that spaces like this for couples is so important, because this they don't understand. Like Sean does get to have a wife that gets that part because she's learning, right? She's done the work. But there is times that I'm like, okay, Sean, you know, but we gotta keep it moving.
Yeah.
So there has to be a balance. I don't think we don't think, I don't know, I can't speak for anyone,
Right.
but I think that conversation it has to be consistent, right?
Correct.
Because poor Sean, like he came into this family already set. It was me, Eric, and Jesse, right? And so when he started to tell me his needs, I'm like, and right?
Give it on.
But it wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't. You know, it wasn't on purpose. I since I was a kid, all I knew was to be a mom, right? And now that he has learned how to be a leader, and he the leader that he wants, and what God has called him to be, he can now communicate that to me. And because I have a relationship with God, I can say, I hear it, it's a need. You know, I can say that, but I don't think women, especially women of color, understand or allow the grace of he has needs and I have needs, and be able to differentiate it from a want. Because we were never allowed to see that as a need. Does that make sense?
No. What you're saying, it makes sense. I agree with that. I can see that perspective. I think that's why I kept saying it's not a competition.
Right.
I think that was the biggest thing, because sometimes what we can do is we can compare, our struggles, or compare the things that that we're going through, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the danger of that, and it's the danger of it from a male perspective. Let me say from a male perspective, is that we can stifle it. And we can keep pushing it down. And we can keep pushing it down and push it down, push it down. And then it can, rot us from the inside. Right. And then also, I can't necessarily speak for these brothers, but there's a lot, like I said, we don't open up that door of vulnerability too often. We do not open it up too often. So if there's a moment where we are feeling vulnerable, and then it's kind of like, I don't have time for that. At least for me, I'm more like, okay, it's not important to you. So I'll start to shut it down. So then when it comes back up, if something like that comes back up, I can't go to it, because I don't think you can handle it, whether it's not just you handle it, but I don't think it can be met in the manner in which, because you're taking in the capacity of the kids and everything else. So I just have to cycle it. And my problem with that is that there's so many men who do it, and it can turn into a negative thing. So I think being able to have a safe space where you can talk to your significant other, and communication is another big thing, and tell them, like, I'm going through something, or I'm dealing with this, or baby, pray for me. I don't need to go into details. Just pray for me. Like, that is powerful. And that in itself can break you down. It's just like to know we praying for me. If I was going through some stuff and I lay down and go to sleep, and I feel my wife praying for me, I'll probably just start bawling. Because at the moment, like, you need that. You know what I mean? Like, you just need that. But
I pray for him, okay?
because she does pray. But what I'm saying is, like, sometimes it's just that. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, what I'm hearing is, when you say this is a need, you have to trust it, like you said. And I think our connection with God will allow us to have that peace. Okay. It might not feel great at first, right? But trust that these are right.
Yeah.
This is amazing. I like it. Good stuff.
Thank you, guys.
No problem.
Do you want to leave any department thoughts?
I wanted to say something about what I was saying earlier. I think that, like, for example, when I said this week that I've been going through some things my wife was too. So I came home and I was just hot about what I was going through. And I was just telling her about it. I was dumping all herself on her.
Yeah.
She's taking it in and she starts telling me about her. And I'm like, oh, man. You know what I mean? Shoot, you got it bad too. You both going through it.
Yeah.
But in that moment, after I finished it, I'm like, she's dealing with a lot too. Let me bring mine back in and be there for her. Right. But I think that's also something that we as men do, not to their home, but I think that we also put ourselves aside and like, what's the betterment for the family?
Yeah.
Right. Because we all got to be happy and nobody's going to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so in that moment, well, let me scale back what I'm going through and really like trying to be there for her. And then it was going to be okay. God's got us. We're going to make it through this. You know what I mean? And then still look at the preacher word that I did today. Right. So these are things that you go through in life. And so that's why it's so important to have that relationship with God. And you got to be able to draw from that. If you don't, you just lose your mind. Like there's no way you could possibly I don't know people in the world get through marriages without having God in the center. I just can't understand it.
Yeah.
I can't see how you guys working out. You know what I mean? But I need that. I need that relationship with God to show me how to reach her. Yeah. Right. What can I say to her right now that can touch her heart? Right. Give me something to speak to her. Mm-hmm. How can I pour into her to let her know something be for her? Yeah. Right. What's the scripture? What's the word? What's the prayer? Right. And then she can do the same thing for me in return. But when you don't have that, it's like you're strong off your worldly emotion. Exactly. Right. And you pull from all the experiences that you had prior to. You know what I mean? Matter. Yes. Yes. And I also feel that when you have a relationship with God and you're married on both sides, the husband and wife, if you're doing something or not doing something you're supposed to be doing, God's going to check you on that. Right? So like you were saying, when you say, trust my needs, if they're not, God's going to say, hey, you know what? You ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing. You actually supposed to be, and you thinking something else. It's not that. Right? Or, brother, you're slipping. She came to you and said, I was feeling this way. You disregarded it, and now she's even more hurt about it. Mm-hmm. And you can let it go for 2 weeks. Fix that. Yeah. Right? So.
I really appreciate that. Because then God will correct you.
Yeah. He has conversations.
and one of the most powerful things, like I leave this is that my senior pastor told me, when we're doing marriage counseling, said never, ever go to bed angry with your spouse. Mm-hmm. And I take that to heart. Maybe it's funny. I don't go to bed angry with my wife, no matter what we dealt with through the week or the day. I do not go to bed angry with my wife. Go to bed and I said, I love you. Kiss you good night. And that's that. Right?
You're not angry no more? Is that it?
Let it go. Let it go.
You can?
I can share something that
I go to bed. And I make sure we feel safe. And he's like, oh my God. Come mama.
I think my reasoning for that is because I realize it's something we've gone through. Life is short, right? And people go, and you don't know where they're going to go. I would hate the last thing for us to have together is leaving angry, and not knowing that I love you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But sometimes we're angry, because anger just looks like love. If you let it go too far, and you act on that anger. So it's important for me to be like, I'm not going to let this keep us from knowing that we love each other. Mm-hmm. We had a disagreement, we had a that, whatever. I still love you, still going to pray for you, still going to still not going nowhere. Good night. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good night. About to go to bed and not say that, and you have that on my heart. It's like, I was so terrible. You know what I mean? And then to get that thing, go to work and be like, oh, well, deal with it, have a good day. No, you know what I mean? Yeah.
So I would need to define what does anger look like? Like, what does it look like for you to go to bed angry? Yeah. I guess I would need to know that.
I don't think it's different.
Right. And to my brother's point, his version of it is me not expressing how I feel about you, despite what I'm feeling inside. Right. Because there is something that you feel inside that you can't necessarily control. Yeah. But what you can control is what you communicate to your spouse. Mm-hmm. I can't control how I feel right now. I'm hurt. I might be upset. But what I'm going to express to you is I love you. Right. I'm not going to give the enemy space to be in here.
That's it. Yeah.
You can't come in here. No. I defend mine in all times. Mm-hmm. Whether I'm happy with you or I'm upset with you. Right? Because the truth is, if I was angry with you and somebody came into this house, regardless of how I feel, they got to get out. Yeah. Right? And I will never let them touch you. Right? And I feel spiritually, it's the same thing. They just not walking through a door. Mm-hmm. Right? Spiritually, when I'm upset and I'm not communicating to you who you are to me, right? And I'm giving you the cold shoulder. I'm creating space for somebody to come in between my marriage, somebody to say things to you because I'm not. So now somebody else is speaking to your mind, right? And these are your own thoughts because I'm not speaking to you, right? So now you're processing all of that. I don't want you processing with any bad spirits. You process with me. You know, process with me, right? So that's how I see it. I see the anger, the cold shoulder that I'm not talking to you as an entry point for the enemy. And I'm too protective for that. I'm not having that. You're right.
You're next to me.
Yes. Right.
That's a good perspective.
Mhm.
You're gonna say to me?
Sometimes my wife and I will just hold each other's hands. We won't even say anything. But that communicates like we're good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not like your warmth is enough right now.
Yeah.
You know, even if I don't have the words, I'll grab your hand and I'll hold it. You know what I mean? Because
Do that.
right, and sometimes that's enough. Like
Or just put my hand like on your shoulder.
right, like
Not as much as you think.
but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I mean, I feel for me at least that I can be angry, but I'm not going nowhere, and I still love you. And for me, I'm like, I'm not turning to the enemy. I'm just what you did after the 12th time I asked you to stop doing that. I'm frustrated, and I'm okay with feeling my feelings, and you're okay with feeling your feelings. Because now you're frustrated. I really want to sit with that because I think that's you guys bring good perspective as to like I don't want the enemy coming in. You know, we have no
Authority here.
authority here, right?
Whatever form. That's what I
And I always think about the kids,
Yeah.
you know, like if we're not good, they're not good, you know, and so
they're taking that energy.
yeah, and we're always, making sure that it's very peaceful in here.
And miserable people stay together. So us not breaking up is not enough.
Mhm.
Like us knowing that we're not going anywhere is not enough for me to feel your love because there's a bunch of miserable people who stay together.
That's because we always talk about that too. Like I'm not going nowhere, but I'm sure I'm not going to be miserable either.
We're gonna be happy.
We talk about that all the time. That's why we do so much date nights and we
Yeah,
go
yeah.
places together and we're all like we laugh together.
Right.
Like she's my best friend.
So you know how to protect your marriage.
Oh,
So
yeah.
at all times.
So, but I felt the way you guys broke it down, like as that might be not protecting it because it does, now that he was talking to him. And
100%. And I'll preface this as you said something one time in the Bible said you can't have two. You can't have two thoughts, right? So you can't praise God and be cursed somebody at the same time. It just your brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't work that way. So there'll be times that I'm upset and I'm talking to God on my way to work. We have a good detailed conversation. And in the midst of it, I can hear that still voice like, so why don't you just pray for him? And it will stop whatever it is that's happening, whatever attack is happening. And I'll start in that process of praying. So you can just like, look, I'm protecting my life. Because I don't know what spiritual battle you're going through. I don't know what's attacking you, but I know that I need to protect it. And then I know I need to pray for myself. And a lot of times I'll pray for clarity and understanding. So I think that becomes a important factor of it. And this is why being grounded in faith is so important. Because when your flesh starts to take over, God gets in the middle of it, right? And he can do that. So
Yeah.
I also think it's important to know that anger can lead somewhere if you let it. Right? Anger is that gateway to the old man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that you still mad. You know what I mean? Tough off in there somewhere, but he's still around. Come up and get triggered every now and then. So when I say that a little bit angry, with your wife, it's because at some point you could take it there.
yeah.
So it's not taking it there. Because some things you put up, you can't take back. Right? They might forgive you, but they're not going to forget.
That's very you like
check me, didn't they?
it. That's right. You got a man of God. That's right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Would love to have you back.
Yeah, this is a great conversation. Feels good.
It was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. And see you next time.
Oh,
Bye.
Yes.